Hey Corky, how are you?
Good.
How's it going?
Good.
Obviously, one of the things that I kind of wanted to ask you about was how you've ended up playing the stuff you do because I've seen on YouTube some of the chamber stuff and obviously you play blues stuff as well and most people with a diatonic harmonica kind of go the blues route or pop and rock and maybe a bit of folk. So how did that come about? That kind of change?
Well, it was, as I tell people who ask the question, it was neither my idea nor my fault. It happened, well, in the early 60s, I was playing with all the blues guys. Matter of fact, I don't know if you saw this picture. I have this photo. Let's see.
Oh wow, is that Howling Wolf?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's sitting on his knee. And that's Jack Myers, the bass player.
Wow. Where was that taken?
That was taken at the Cafe A Go Go in New York City, backstage, and it was taken by, what's his name? The folk singer's Phil Oakes' brother, Mike Oakes, and also Jesse Colin Young was there, and I think he's the guy that posed. Not Jesse Colin Young, the singer in Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he took the photo. And what had happened was, we came out of in '65. Jim Schwall and I had this gig every Thursday night where we were playing at this place on the south side of Chicago. We were the only white people anywhere around. And Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and Little Walter and Willie Dixon and all the Otis band would come and sit in with us.
Wow.
And we're just learning to play, right? That was 65. So, 66, we came up on the north side, and Howlin' Wolf would come north to sit in with us. Really loved the band that we had at that point. Then we had our own band. And he said he wanted to take us on the road with him. And he did. And we went on the road with them, and we played a couple colleges in upper state New York, and then the Cafe A Go Go for a week. And he used to knock on my door every day, every morning, and we'd take walks in the village together. And so we were, good buddies, and that's how that happened. So we were opening for Howlin' Wolf. We opened for him. We weren't playing with him on those gigs, but he wanted us to come with because he really loved the band. We took his family to come see Siegel Schwall. Where Butter, well, he was always nice to me, and Bloomfield, we were friends, but they were not into the band at all. Steve Miller, who I used to jam with, and Mike Bloomfield, and Barry Goldberg, and Steve Miller, all those guys. Siegel Schwall was not their cup of tea. They thought we were pretty corny, you know what I mean? But the blues guys, Muddy and Wolf, they loved us.
Hey, you must have been a good band then if he specifically asked you to tour with him.
We were. What had happened was I was very aware of my lack of skill. My lack of understanding and my lack of that I tried 30 seconds to sound like Wolf, and I gave that up like before the 1 minute was up.
Yeah.
Never gonna happen. I'm never gonna sound like any of these blues guys. Never. And I didn't even consider myself a blues guy. Jim and I did not consider ourselves a blues band, though mostly that's what we played, is blues-oriented stuff. But we never thought of that. We were just playing music, and it was very jug band-oriented.
Oh, really? Oh, I play in a jug band.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, and it was not on purpose. It's not like we were consciously doing anything. We were consciously saying to each other, let's just play music. We don't have to worry about categories or blues or this or that. We'll just play music. And that's all we ever did. And so, what was the point? Let's see. I don't remember. Oh, so anyway, that was, yeah, so I think Wolf and Muddy and those guys really liked the fact that we were different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You had just asked a question that I forgot. But anyway, so in '66, the other thing that happened is we started playing at Big John's. When Butterfield went on the road, they had all these auditions, and I remember now what I was going to say. Because I knew that I didn't have the skill, I arranged the music in such a way that I thought it would sound better. So we played, like, instead of playing a shuffle like dun 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 dun, we played a da 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 da, and it made the band sound real tight. So we played pretty simple stuff, but it really did sound good. And the other trick, which I can tell you, because when we were playing in San Francisco a couple of years later, Janis Joplin actually came up to me, because we were buddies, and she said, "Corky, how does your band get such an amazing audience response when we have all these Marshall stacks and you just come in with this little Silvertone amplifier?" And so I told her, I said, "Dynamics." So we used to use dynamics as a trick. You know, not as much as a musical thing, but as a trick to make the music more exciting. So we had this tightness, but we also used dynamics. So we would, always build things and create a lot of excitement. So we created the illusion of being a tight band that knew what we were doing.
Yeah. You know, I think that's something that I always try and, when I'm teaching, discuss dynamics, because I think that without improving your technique, your ability on the instrument, even anything else, you can improve your performance and the sound of what you're playing just by using a bigger range of dynamics. And I feel like on harmonica especially, there's sort of a problem, because especially if you're playing with other instruments and other musicians, people just think, well, I need to be bloody heard, so they'll just play as loud as they can, and there's no individual consideration of dynamics. And then that also, obviously, when you're thinking about the band dynamics, kind of gets left behind. But I had a little look at the book that you wrote, kind of about feel and emotion and all that kind of thing, and I'd love it if you could say something about that, because that sounded really great.
Before I get to the book, I'll finish answering your question.
Sure.
So in 1966, we were playing Big John's, and this fellow used to come in night after night after night. He was a really big fan. I never met him or anything, but he came up to me and he said, "I'd like your band to jam with my band." And I'm thinking, who is this guy and what's his band? It was Seiji Ozawa. and his band was the Chicago Symphony. So that was 1966. So we started working on the piece in 1966. That we performed in '68, and Seiji used to say, "You must pursue this juxtaposition of blues and classical. It brings people together. It's good for music. Classical music is very dry and it needs a spark." So that's really how the whole thing started. With that.
Yeah.
And in terms of the book, what you said is absolutely true. And I stumbled on the idea of dynamics early on, and used it as an arrangement tool. But then, William Russo, I don't know if you know William Russo, he's the guy that wrote my first symphonic piece for me, and he was Stan Kenton's trombonist, and he worked with Leonard Bernstein, and so he was like this really great jazz guy in Chicago. And so he wanted me to do a workshop at Columbia College for 2 weeks with his students. And music students, and he said I could do whatever I wanted. So I decided I would spend 2 weeks doing nothing but talking about dynamics. And I learned so much in those 2 weeks, and started going around the country doing these workshops just on dynamics. And the results were mind-boggling. One student, I'll give you a couple examples. A student would show up, in the high school, and he'd have a saxophone. I say, "Play your piece," and he played a piece. And then I gave him instructions to give him a feel of a dynamic range. And I didn't tell him anything other than play this really forceful, more forceful, more forceful. Play this really delicate, more delicate, more delicate. So it wasn't about loud and soft.
Mm.
It was about the physical attack or the touch on the instrument. So after he goes through the exercise, which takes about 1 minute, I said, okay, now just play your piece. I didn't tell him to use dynamics. I just said, play it forcefully, play it delicately. Okay, now play your piece. Because what was happening on the rawest level is that now his body felt what it was like to be forceful and be delicate. It was instilled. So when he played, he had that at his fingertips. And it's a normal thing to want to express yourself. And so all of a sudden he's playing and people are going nuts. All of a sudden he sounds like he's been playing for 10 years. Like it should be recorded. And he's getting goosebumps, and someone is yelling goosebumps. A lot of my workshops, people will just yell out goosebumps because they'll hear a regular performance, and then they'll hear the performance where the person added the dynamics. It's unbelievable. So I had to write the book, and it's basically 1 page with 79 pages of explanation.
Right. Yeah.
The difference, and in the book I talk about all the different ways that dynamics helps you accomplish what you want to accomplish when you're playing music. If it's just because you're having fun, it'll make it more fun.
Yeah.
It's because it just feels real good and it's uplifting. It'll make it more feel better and even more uplifting. If it's because you want the audience to pay more attention, it'll make the audience. It pretty much solves almost every musical goal you could imagine, justifying the dynamics. So you were definitely onto something.
No matter someone's technique, they're a lot more listenable and enjoyable as a musician if they've got that dynamic range. And they might be a very basic player, but if they're using that big range, then as you said, with the emotion and goosebumps, it's true, and that music should do those things to you.
I don't know how this goes. I must be in the right here. In my head, I was in the wrong. Or it's like night and day.
Yeah.
It's just a simple thing. As long as they could do Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, they could express themselves fully.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
Yeah.
So that's a dynamic thing. It changes the tone, it improves the rhythm, and if you can get through the learning curve of playing a piece, I think it speeds up the learning curve. But if there's a big hurdle to apply the dynamics right away, but if you would challenge that, the learning curve speeds up. That's my experience.
Yeah.
Anyway, it gives you this dimensional thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also there's the thing where there's the intimacy, and then it bounces off the walls of the room, and it just goes like this. I mean, it's like unbelievable, and people don't know this.
Yeah. It's a bit like the when you're saying about the intimacy, it reminds me of the old teachers, school teachers' trick of when the class is loud, they'll go quiet, and then everyone listens to them rather than getting louder and matching the sound of the kids. So going back to the classical stuff, did you have any classical training before all this happened?
I did study music in college for 5 years, but I failed every course. I was basically in college to stay out of the draft, and I was only able to get into music school but I had to pass some stringent entrance exams. So for a year, I practiced the piano to get in, and I got in on that, and played scales, basically. Played one classical piece, a little Mozart thing, that I can only play part of. And then all these scales, but I practiced 10 hours a day every day.
Yeah.
But I'm not a academic kind of a person, and not a person who, not only, it's very painful for me to practice. The idea of practicing, at least then, was horrible. Or doing homework. I couldn't stand it. It was painful for me. I was dyslexic. Of course, I still am. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. And the way they taught back in those days. But I was schooling and learning and reading. I never read. All that stuff was really out of my picture. Yeah. So, yes, I did study music. I learned basic music theory. I learned how to read music. I can't read music, but I know how. In other words, I can't just pick up and read music. I can figure it out.
So how did it work the first time you joined an orchestra or a classical group, and you got your harmonica with you? How did that work in terms of not reading or what they wanted you to do? Well, first of all, the pieces that were written, I actually worked on those pieces with the composer. So I made sure there were big cues. I made sure that I didn't have to play anything different than I normally played. Or that the band, Siegel didn't have to play anything different. It was just a matter of where they came in and where they exited in the different sections. However, what we all did have to do, what Jim and I had to do, is make sure that what we were playing was something that uplifted the work. That wasn't just us improvising, but it was, where are we going to start, where are we going to go, what kind of licks that we already play, the choice of licks, and where they're spread out, and how, so it was very, make sure that it fits, make sure that we're moving the piece forward along with the orchestra. But really, we're not playing a note of classical music. It's just a matter of being very sensitive with the choices we're making. And I mean, they must have liked what you did, and you must have enjoyed it, because you've continued with that aspect of your playing.
Well, what happened was, it was very successful. The first time we played the Chicago Symphony in 68, 69, New York Philharmonic, the Boston Symphony, and the Boston Symphony was not, most of the members really hated us. Chicago, I think, was okay, and San Francisco totally loved us, and half of the members of the Boston Pops, so there were back then, this was groundbreaking. It wasn't like, well, I'll tell you the story of New York Philharmonic. So we showed up, and this was not Siegel. I had to do a pickup band, so I got some friends of mine. We show up, and we're going to play four concerts with the New York Philharmonic in Lincoln Center, right? Subscription concert, right? So we get on stage, and the audience starts booing and hissing. It's like 1969. This was a generation gap, the hippies and the establishment. And they're booing and hissing, and it was like really loud and horrible. And Seiji comes over to me and says, "What should we do?" Seiji Ozawa. And he knew what I was going to say. He was being the teacher, What should we do? I said, let's just play the music. So we played, and the president of the Symphony Association approached me and said that was the longest and most intense standing ovation he had ever heard in Lincoln Center.
Wow.
He said the only thing he could compare it to was one of Caruso's last concerts.
Wow.
And then the New York Times gave us this rave review with the headlines, they love Corky Siegel in Lincoln Center, and the audience, so it was like really a great success, even though we weren't performing to a welcoming audience.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about this in my own description of what I was experiencing, while the Rolling Stones and all the blues bands here in the States were exposing the blues to audiences may not have heard the blues this way before. They were welcoming audiences.
Yeah.
We were playing to skeptical audiences.
Yeah.
We were breaking through and exposing the blues element to these audiences. You know what I'm saying? So we felt this conflict, social, cultural, bam, bam, and we had to knock down these walls.
Yeah.
When Siegel Schwal would play somewhere, we were welcome. When we're doing the symphonic thing and playing we weren't welcomed, and we felt that. So that was what was unique, and I had some of the blues guys, like Sugar Blue, that a long, long, long time ago. Thank you for bringing the blues to classical audiences. No one else is doing that in this way, and Chicago blues.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Certainly, there's Gershwin and the blues element, and people doing experimentations. But I was sort of doing it as a career. It's my job. It's dirty work, but somebody's got to do it. I wasn't doing it because I wanted to do it. I was doing it because Seiji said, no one else is going to do this. If you don't do it, it's not going to get done. And somebody has to do it. So I did it. But then, specifically in 1983, I was working on a symphonic piece. And I'll explain that in a minute. I fell in love with the whole idea.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing it because I love it. So the question you might have is, and I should answer this, get it out of the way. How did I write symphonic music?
Yeah.
With just a basic understanding of music theory. And I did. In 1975, I was approached by the city of San Francisco and the San Francisco Symphony. They wanted me to write a symphonic work. And I said, I never did that before. And they said, oh, come on, you can do it. I'm thinking, no, I can't do that. And they said, come on, you could do it. And so I figured, well, I don't live in San Francisco. I'll go ahead. So my first piece was for the San Francisco Symphony in front of 6,000 people, conducted by Arthur Fiedler. The first one I ever wrote. And I got an orchestration book. I got a book on calligraphy, how to pick the notes. And I got a score from another classical composer, and I just looked to see how they did it. And I didn't do it that way, but I just got the idea. And I know what an oboe sounds like. And what I learned, and it was a major success, and because of that piece, I got commissions from the National Symphony, from the San Francisco, more from the San Francisco Symphony and the Grant Park Symphony in Chicago. And I started getting offers all over, which I turned down, almost all of them, because it was too much work for a little blues guy to write a symphony piece. So the idea is that if you're sitting around if you have a band,
Yeah.
Okay, so you're sitting around working out parts, right? You have just gotten more education in composition than anyone who goes to Juilliard and studies composition. That gives you what you need to write a symphony piece. Just sitting around and saying, try this, try this, try this. So now you've got that experience, and you go, okay, I want the flutes to do this, I want this to do this. It's like, and I've been doing it and breaking every rule in the book, and that's why the orchestras and the artistic directors are always asking me to write music, because they say no one else in the world is writing music like this. And they ask me to do it, and like I say, I usually turn it down because it's just too much work. So that's my story in terms of that aspect of the skill.
Yeah.
You know, and the knowledge. I don't have the skill and knowledge that composers have, but it's sort of a boon because everything comes out really unique,
Mm-hmm.
you know, different.
Yeah. And when you're playing with, you know, playing in the kind of classical context, do you play any other instruments? Is it always harmonica?
Piano.
Piano, okay. Do you mainly play piano in that context? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So let's say in chamber blues now, most of the stuff is harmonica,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some piano.
Mm-hmm.
In my solo shows, it's mostly piano because I'm accompanying myself.
Mm.
And I'll play some harmonica things, and I'll do some piano harmonica stuff.
Yeah.
These long streams I'm doing, I almost always do a piano harmonica thing, you know. And when I play with Howard, both of us are at the piano and at the harmonica.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So what kind of, how often are you doing shows with Howard then?
A lot.
Yeah.
You know, when they were happening, yeah, a lot. And so we have Howard, who is the genius of all geniuses.
Mm.
And I tell audiences, I explain to them about Howard. First of all, I hold up the harmonica. I said, he's playing the same instrument I am. It's got 10 holes, you know, when he reads. And I say, and I just want everyone to see that this is what the instrument is. And that first rehearsal I ever had with Howard when he played with chamber blues, he's doing one of his concertos, and he's rehearsing, and he's playing, and he's looking at the music, and and he's playing, and he's turning pages while he's playing, not missing a note.
Yeah.
Switching against. And then at one point, while he's playing, this picks up a pencil and is taking notes so he could say something to the quartet when they're done with that section. And so I say to the audience at that point, so what Howard is going to do tonight isn't so difficult. he loves it. And then I tell him it's like having breakfast with Howard is like having breakfast with Einstein, with Mozart, and Beethoven all in one time.
Yeah.
Me, I'm a folk musician. I don't come out of skill, and I don't come out of achievement.
Mm.
You know, I just wanted to play music because I loved it, and I avoided achievement in practice. And a lot of it had to do with I just don't understand a lot of this stuff.
Mm.
And I don't have the hand-eye, you know, I don't have that kind of a skill to be proficient on an instrument. 55 years of playing certainly has given me a great deal of proficiency in a certain aspect, in a certain way. And I need to share this with you because this is really important. I think people need to know that everyone could play music. You know, it's not just people like Howard Lee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tend to think that's what it's for.
Yeah.
You know, but the Howard Levies, well, really, there's only one. They're extremely important aspect of music. I mean, they're like, you know. So I'm in no way do I belittle that. You know, Ernie Watts. You know the Ernie Watts, the sax Ernie Watts. So I've been doing a lot of things with him, and some duets actually. And he just sent me a recording that our Indian violinist friend Dr. Subramaniam wanted him to send, and he's sending it to me because I'm looking at it and then sending it to Subramaniam. I'm the middleman in this. So yesterday he sent me this thing, and it was really simple. It was just sort of repeated, and it was just 3 notes. And I wrote to Ernie and I said, well, this is really great. You've accomplished so much because only a year ago you could only play 2 notes.
Yeah.
Well, very well. I need to tell you a couple things. Not for most of your students, but maybe for a couple of your students. I did a workshop in India, and I was asked to teach these Indian kids on TV to play the harmonica. And I'm not a teacher. I don't have any. I don't teach, so I didn't know exactly what to do. But I did tell them if you could breathe in and out, you could play the harmonica. Mm-hmm. So basically, I had them go. And then I played along. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But like into it, they were 6-year-old kids, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of the concept. So that's how I learned. I started with 1 note and found. So my whole approach to music, it actually started on the piano. I fell in love with the blues and Jimmy Reed, and there's this blues shuffle, that feel. So I'm on the piano going down, doo-dum, 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 doo-dum. I played that for a month, and making a change, trying to find out what is going on there. Where is the expression? What is the expression? What everything about how to make it feel good, and get deeper and deeper into that. And then after a while, doo-dum, 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 doo-dum. I'd add another note. And that's basically how I learned to play, 1 note at a time.
Yeah.
But those notes were licks that I particularly loved. And it became my bag of tricks. So that's one aspect. So, you could do the 1 note at a time thing. If you have a student who really cares about it feeling good, then make it feel. It could be Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, like you said. The other thing is, I have all the different keys of harmonicas. Howard could do everything I do on 1 harmonica, with effortlessly. So if I go into a minor key, instead of going. I don't do that. I pick up a minor harmonica. So basically, I'm playing, what's that called? Finger positions. I don't know what that's called.
I don't know. Let's go with finger positions.
So I'm playing, the structures, little structures. So the feel, the touch of playing, it is what I'm doing. And so I've been doing this for 55 years, and I haven't even scratched the surface. So for me, with my approach, to try and learn to play in a minor key on a major harmonica, when I could just grab a minor harmonica, I grab the minor harmonica. So what I'm doing is I call it digging one hole and getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, rather than trying to achieve knowledge and ability with the limited time I have. I mean, I'm composing music, I'm writing songs, I have the piano that I have to learn, I have the harmonica, I'm really spread out, and most of my life is about yoga and meditation, because that is part of my music, because it enables me to get deeper into the music and focus on it. So that's just as important to me as practicing. So by the time I've done those and eaten and had time for eating food, practice does not become an everyday thing for me. But I just want to play music and I want to feel it. And so I'm not the kind of approach that is about achieving something or trying to sound like something else. You know, I'm just sort of discovering more little things to add and to get deeper with the least amount of effort as possible.
It breaks my heart when people say they're not musical. So to go way back to, you know, you saying that everyone can play music, I completely agree. And I think it's great what you're saying about these different ways of playing. And Howard is a genius, and I'm so thankful that he's on this earth. But then equally, you know, I interviewed Lee Oscar, and of course he makes all the different tunings, and he was saying my interest in playing is finding an instrument that works so I can then use it expressively. And so that's why he does all these different tunings, and they're kind of these opposite approaches, but I'm glad we've got them both because they're both fantastic.
And all the ones in between.
Yeah, of course. And you know, if someone's starting out on harmonica today, they've just bought a harmonica, they don't have to be Howard Levy, they don't have to be Corky Siegel, they don't have to be Lee Oscar, because they're going to be them, and whatever that is in between will happen if they just let themselves and enjoy it.
So I spent 20 years writing this book, 27 years. 20 years. So I wrote a section on individuality, but it's just really short. Individuality is an expression that comes from the natural way your own mind, heart, and body are ordered. And when we flow with this, it connects us in a very effective and deep way to any activity we apply it to. Yeah. And then I talk about, it's not about being out of the box or in the box. The box gets in the way. Because someone could be a Bob Dylan fan. They could just love so much the way he plays the harmonica that that's what they want to do. Well, that's their individuality. Even copying somebody, if that's what they connect with, then they should do that. Or if, you know, they're doing this avant-garde stuff and that's what they connect with, because it really is them. So we need to find that. It's a nice thing if someone could find, what do I do? What makes me feel good? How am I made up? What do I have to offer myself in the world? That's individuality, and there's no limits or restrictions on it.
Yeah.
Other than to understand that when you're trying to project another player, and you want to channel the other player, and you want to do it for technical reasons, or you want to show off, or something like that, you're not connected to it. It's just going to be not so great for you. Maybe great for others, but not for you.
Yeah.
So the idea is just simply to not get distracted by people's opinions, and just see what you want to do and do it. And that's the best thing you can do. You can't do anything any better than that.
I want to come back and ask you one final question, kind of related to what you just said, but I want to get something out of the way first before I do. Where does the name Corky come from?
My sister named me that when I was born.
Okay.
Because it was a comic strip where a baby Corky was in a comic strip.
Oh, well, I thought it might be because you like drinking wine or something, you know, so you're always pulling the corks out or something. I want to finish with something. I'm not really sure what my question is, but I'm sure you'll have something to say about it. So recently I spoke to Buddy Green, and he was saying that to him music is a gift from God, and to me music is a really profound experience, playing and listening and experiencing. So I suppose my question is, what's music to you, and what is it that you love about music?
I mean, I'm not organized religion either. When I hear the word God, I could easily change it to the universe. You know, or nature, you know. But when people ask me one time I had a Christian rite. I was performing at a college that's Christian rite, extremist, right? And I was asked to give a little lecture to them. And before I got started, a woman said, "Are you Jewish?" And I'm Jewish. And then no one laughed.
Oh dear.
So Jonathan Winters, when they asked him if he was a Jew, he was only half Jewish, so he would say, "I'm Jewish," and no one laughed. And then I said, "Well, I'm Jewish, I'm Christian, I'm Muslim, I'm Buddhist, I'm atheist, I'm agnostic, I'm Hindu." And I said, the reason I say that is because I don't want religion to get in the way of my love for humanity. And they didn't even blink an eye. And then the woman comes back, trying to dig herself out of the hole, and she says, "The reason I asked you that is because some of my best friends are Jewish." And then she said, "You people, you're so good with money."
No, she didn't.
But I gave her a big hug, and I said, "Thank you so much. That's very valuable information for me." So that's sort of my little ring. But the first thought is that you hear a cello. This one note fills the room. It fills everyone in the room from head to toe with this uplifting quality. You know? And I also talk about, you know, the sounds in nature, how amazing and beautiful and powerful they are. And they're so uplifting, you know, the thunder and rain, and, you know, I could go through all this, but you know what I'm talking about. I mean, that sounds pretty trite, but it's profound. That the music, the uplifting sounds are already there. And then we make these instruments that make sounds like a violin and this, and they offer the same musical elements of pitch and harmony and articulation and dynamic variation and tonal qualities and rhythm, all these musical elements. And I always say the artist gets way too much credit because the power that we have is in these musical elements, because you don't need an artist. You know, there's chance music. Matter of fact, my wife said there's this composer who wrote a piece because of birds on a telephone wire. And she said, the guy's a genius, listen to this. And so I had her just pick some numbers, and she didn't know what I was doing, and I wrote these numbers down. Pick a number between 1 and 5, pick another one, and I just wrote them down. And then I created music based on the numbers she wrote, completely random. And then I played it for her 2 days later. She says, "Wow, what's that? That's beautiful." And I said, "You wrote it." So the musicians, you and I, and composers and everything, we get to manipulate these powerful musical elements to our own delight. You know, and I use the analogy of gold. You make a statue out of gold, and then someone walks in the room and they go, "Oh man, that is so beautiful, so it just glows, it's so filled with luster." Well, that's the goal. You know, we got to do our, so to me, I look at music that way. I look at my role in it, and that's why, you know, when he says it's a gift from God, if you understand it the way I just explained it, that we get too much credit, and it's powerful musical elements we get to manipulate, then that starts making a little more sense in that way. And I wrote a piece. Let me see if I can find it. I just wrote a piece that answers your question. I'm gonna look for just a paragraph. After those absolute essentials, the next level of priorities for humanity include mental health. Art and music is food for the soul and a serum for serenity. It's uplifting, unifying, and healing. It lifts us out of depression, anger, and delusion. It helps keep our minds sweet and clear, so we are making the right decisions for ourselves and the world.
It is an expression of kindness and compassion. So anyway, that was what I was pointing out. And I actually do a workshop for young kids that goes really into great detail, that these aren't just words, that actually this is how it works, starting with one note on a cello. Think about that. Think about what that does and how fulfilling that is. And then I just go through the whole thing, and it's like a 45-minute in-depth experience of what music is really doing and why they say these things about it. But here's some actually tangible things you could look at to show how it does bring people together.
That sounds about right to me.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well, I think that's a good place to finish. Thank you so much for your time, sitting down to chat with me. I really appreciate it.
Great to meet you, and keep up the great work.
Stay safe, stay well,
Okay.
and keep in touch.
Okay.
All right, Corky. Take care. Bye.